Leonardo DiCaprio.
Miss Anne Hathaway.
Meryl Streep, the Iron Lady.
Alan Arkin in Little Miss Sunshine.
Kevin Costner.
The King's Speech.
Birdman.
I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Redoing the Oscars. And this week we're going to be looking at the year 2003, going in order week over week, talking about a different one of the main categories and talking about how I would redo it, who I would choose instead that was nominated, as well as an alternative unnominated, non-nominated movie to talk about some other different types of performances. Yes, maybe the Oscar was deserved, but this is an opportunity to talk about one category from each year. We started from 2015, we're working our way back, one category each year, and talk about a different type of performance, a different type of movie that didn't win. What if they did? What would that have done for their career? And ultimately trying to understand, did the Academy get it right? Sometimes I'm just replacing it because it's a personal preference. Sometimes in the history of the Academy Awards, it's helpful to understand, you know what, maybe we take away this Oscar because they get it later on and kind of rearrange things to make things a little bit more fair. So that's kind of my philosophy. Everyone at least gets one, and we can talk about some other different types of movies that didn't get rewarded. But as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what your picks are, either nominated or unnominated, which what you have picked in the category that I picked. But also feel free to look at the Oscars year. This year in particular, I think you can talk about maybe an alternative pick for the supporting actress category. That could always be fun. I like to have like an even spread, talk about supporting actress one week or actress the next, or in this case, best lead actor, including as well as best picture and best director are always fun to do. Although I do like the performances, so I'm glad we're back to things. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's jump into things. We always like to start off with a bit of historical context. So that's what I want to do. I want to talk about the 2003 Oscars, which I think for most people are the Lord of the Rings Oscars. This is the year where the Lord of the Rings Return of the King was rewarded for the entire franchise. It was nominated for 11 Oscars and it won 11 of them, and I think is largely seen as a good thing, largely well regarded, just because that franchise is so beloved, including by myself. And it's funny though, from years on out, we always think, okay, when are the Oscars going to kind of do that again? Are they going to do it for the second Wicked movie? Are they going to do it for Harry Potter? We're thinking about maybe they're going to do it for Dune this year. Although the truth of the matter is, we don't know if they're ever going to do it again, because this was a very unique, very rare situation where no movie has ever won this many Oscars and ended up actually winning all of the movies that they were nominated for. It was an absolute sweep, the way we never really see nowadays. But what's interesting about the movie is that it didn't win any of the acting categories. It won pretty much every other category except in the acting ones, because it wasn't even nominated in any of the acting categories, surprisingly enough. So what we end up have is a group of four winners of actors who I all like, but in movies that are kind of odd for their wins. Movies that I don't think should have been maybe their ultimate wins. You have the two men from Mystic River, Tim Robbins, who's good in the movie, probably my favorite of the four performances, but I think he probably should have won for either his directing or something like a Shawshank Redemption, or even something like a Hudsucker Proxy, that kind of a period I really like him in. Sean Penn, who I think is excellent in Mystic River, but is my least favorite of his three Oscars, and now when we look back on it and you go, he's got three Oscars. Does he really need three? Maybe we can take one away from him here and give it to someone else, like we will later on in the show. And then the supporting acting actresses side of things, we talked about a little bit there, but Renee Zellweger in Cold Mountain, definitely a makeup award win. She probably should have won in 2002 for Chicago. She was on a heater, really, post Jerry Maguire with Bridget Jones in Chicago. She was the kind of it girl at the time, so they felt like because they didn't reward it to her in 2002, they had to give her one here with Cold Mountain, even though that movie, though, is not super well beloved or remembered today. And then for Best Lead Actress, Charlize Theron in Monster, which I think is a very strong performance in a movie that has aged well, particularly with its kind of LGBT themes and just the fascination with true crime, which is ever more popular today than it was even back in 2003. So that's a film that I think is still well regarded, and that performance in particular is very well liked by the people at least who have seen it. So an odd set of winners. of actors I like, but maybe none of their best performances. So let's replace one. Let's do the best lead actor category and give my alternative nominated pick that I think should have won the 2003 Best Lead Actor Award, and that's Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl. This is an iconic role and an iconic character that was first defined in this movie, and the same reason why I think Harrison Ford should have won for his performance in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think there is a real skill in terms of creating a defining character for generations to come. A classic character that has had made many sequels, that has theme park rides. There should be, an appreciation for that. And similarly, when we talked about Keira Knightley just a couple of weeks ago, this would be a rare opportunity for the Oscars to reward an actor for their most iconic role. Usually doesn't happen. Someone like a Harrison Ford wasn't even nominated for Raiders of the Lost Ark. That wasn't even a consideration. But because Johnny Depp was so good in this blockbuster, the Academy felt the need to nominate him. Even though he probably never had a realistic chance of winning, this would have been his chance of ultimately winning an Oscar. He has yet to win it. I know he is sort of pseudo-cancelled. We'll see if he comes back with the Christmas Carol movie later on in this year, but he's been kind of excommunicated by Hollywood, so I know he's a bit of a controversial figure. But talking about the performance itself in this movie, I think that this is an absolutely fantastic film. We talked about how much I love the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise just a few weeks ago when I talked about Bill Nighy and his amazing performance in that film. I wanted to do it again and talk about the kind of key figure of these films, which is Jack Sparrow and Johnny Depp's performance as him. So yes, the performance is iconic. I think we can all agree on that. But is it actually good? Is it actually deserving of an Academy Award? Is there acting involved? And I think yes. I think it's a combination of both. First off, I think if you create an iconic character, whether it's good or bad or whatnot, you should be rewarded. In the same way, but this isn't a situation like even Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where for the most part, it's Harrison Ford being Harrison Ford and charming and doing what he does best. I think what's interesting about Jack Sparrow and Johnny Depp's performance is that it's kind of different. Yes, it's an ability to create an iconic role, which in and of itself I think should be in consideration for an Oscar and to go down in film history, just in terms of the ability to create a popular, recognizable character. That should be a skill in and of its own right. But also, I think it's an interesting performance, an interesting character. That this was a character that had to have been created and defined and embodied by Johnny Depp. His decision to be as physical as he is, to kind of combine Keith Richards with Columbo, with Buster Keaton. When I think about this performance, I think about just how clearly defined it is and unique and specific it is. He defined the idea of a pirate and what that means for so many people, millions of people around the world. When they think of a pirate, they think immediately of Jack Sparrow. And what I do love about the actual performance in the movie itself is he toes this beautiful line between annoying and funny. I think he's also an incredibly physical performer. When you think about him, I think about his kind of strut and his walk and that kind of relaxed, half-drunk kind of a way he presents his lines. I also think he's one of the best reaction shot performers. When you think of just a shot of Jack Sparrow, so much of it is not necessarily a funny, quippy line. It's just the way he kind of raises and furrows his eyebrows to a certain situation that he either gets incredibly lucky with or, convincingly outsmarts someone. He always is kind of balancing that act of being secretly smarter than you think and being kind of an idiot. So when you think about his performance, so much of the reason maybe why it became iconic is because it's so well defined and funny, and like I said, towing that line beautifully. So I think it's more than just him being handsome and charming and being Johnny Depp, but on screen. It's actually creating a character and defining this pirate role, this unpredictable character. You don't know who, especially in this movie, if he's good, if he's bad, if he'll help you, if he'll backstab you. He is so unpredictable and therefore has an unpredictable kind of sloppy energy where you sometimes even watching him on screen, you don't know if he's going to fall or keep going. He is this kind of unpredictable, mysterious character. That is combined with just a beautiful physical performance by Depp and beautiful reaction shots constantly that add so much to the comedic flavor of what I think is a pretty terrific film and just a superb performance. So the fact that Johnny Depp hasn't had an Oscar and is undeniably indelible to the history of movies, particularly in the kind of 90s and 2000s, I think he's deserving of one. And if I were to give him any one, it would absolutely be his most iconic role here, playing Jack Sparrow in the first Pirates of the Caribbean. And then to talk about my alternative non-nominated pick, a performance that wasn't even nominated at the Oscars that I think should have been, and maybe even should have won. I'm talking about Albert Brooks in Finding Nemo, which is a little bit of a zag for me. I think that maybe that's not on everyone's top of their lists, but I encourage you to think about it. You know, the Academy would never reward, and never does reward, voice acting performances. And I think I kind of get it. It's mostly just because they are missing a tool. So much of the animators are animating the characters' facial reactions, so therefore are you going to give so much of that appreciation to just a voice and kind of nominate, let's say, just a voice over another actor who has voice and performance and facial reactions. Particularly in the kind of era of AI, I would see something like voice acting even become less appreciated, particularly within the Academy. And I sort of understand that, but I actually almost go a different way. I think if you're able to create a very emotional character in an animated film, that should be even more respected because you only have your voice. You're not relying on your facial reactions to kind of get you over the edge or to really communicate so much of the feeling. When you have a character in an animated film in which you can't actually showcase the soul and the glimmer through your eyes like so many great actors do, they act through their eyes, you only have your voice, it's therefore that much harder sometimes to actually have an emotional reaction to a character, which is ultimately my case for Albert Brooks here. When you think about the movie Finding Nemo, pretty universally loved. I love the movie. But what I think, particularly with people that do like it, and Pixar movies in general, but I think in particular Finding Nemo, it's a very emotional movie. I think audiences really connect with and care the fact that Marlin is really looking for his son. He does feel like a father who is in desperate search of his son because he has a deep amount of love for him. So if we can all agree that this is a very emotional movie that maybe makes us cry and that there's a clear love between these two characters, why are we not rewarding performance? If it's so obvious and so clear that this is such an emotional movie to so many other people, well, how does emotion kind of come about? How do we actually believe that this fish cares about this other fish? Well, through the performance, through the voice performance, through the kind of anxiety, through the kind of pain and longing that Albert Brooks is able to give to the voice. It's not just the score, it's not just the animation. A lot of it feels like almost a real person, even though it's a fish, which is why we're so easily able to kind of connect to this movie. And Brooks does it all. Like I mentioned, he has this kind of very quick, rapid way of speaking, which I think emphasizes the anxiety that he has when he loses Nemo at the beginning for even just a half second, to the kind of despair that he has when he realizes he's actually lost Nemo, to even some of the comedic moments when he's frustrated by Dory. Those emotions are clear, and they're not just clear because of how it looks. They're clear because of how he's delivering the dialogue, because of his voice. His voice acting is incredible. To me, I think Brooks is up there with Tom Hanks as Woody in the Toy Story films, or Amy Poehler as Joy in the Inside Out films. He is such a perfect match for this character, and I think brings so much kind of humanity and decency and genuine anxiety and kind of a heart and warmth to this film, that he's the main reason why this movie is so emotional and is as emotional as it is because the emotion he's able to project using just his voice only that makes it feel so much more real and human and emotional. So I know the Academy doesn't like to reward voice acting performances. I try to sometimes. If you see my end of the year lists, like the Connors, I talked about how much I think I've nominated Maya Hawke in Inside Out 2, which that was a great voice performance. I think if we can all agree that it's an emotional movie, how can we not reward the clear driving emotion of the movie, which to me is not the comic relief of Dory or Crush. It's actually the voice performance of Marlin, played by Albert Brooks. But now to wrap things up, did the Academy make the right decision? Did they make the right choice? And I'm going to go with no, but only in hindsight. Actually, at the time, they probably did make the right decision. Sean Penn was a widely respected actor who'd been making great movies for 20 years, directing his own movies. So he was very well respected in a drama in which he showcases a lot of his acting range. That being said, if we look back on things, we go, I actually think he was better in Milk. I actually think he's even better in One Battle After Another. Do we really need to give him 3 Oscars? Maybe we take this one away, which is his weakest of the 3 performances in my opinion, and give it to an iconic role, an iconic performer who will never get the chance to reward him again in Johnny Depp. That's kind of the way I look at things. I think at the time it probably was a fine decision. very respected actor. Still doesn't look too bad in Sean Penn. And like I said, I like most of the performances this year. But if I were to redo things, my preference still is Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean, just because of how defined this character is, how he created this character, and how genuinely funny and unpredictable and exciting he makes this movie. For as much as this movie I think is a kind of 9 out of 10 classic movie, Johnny Depp adds a whole another level to it and transforms it from just like an entertaining summer blockbuster to a genuine franchise-defining masterpiece. So I have to give the reward here for Johnny Depp, but let me know in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on his performance? What are your thoughts on maybe my take that Albert Brooks should have been nominated for Finding Nemo? Or, like I said, feel free to talk about any of the other categories, what your pick or unnominated pick would have been in supporting actress or picture, whatever you'd like. Love to hear that in the comments down below. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.